Hi everyone and welcome back to another video. Today I've got something slightly different. I thought we'd just have a little chat because I always see other people doing these videos. I think I did one a long time ago, way back when I first started making YouTube videos, and it was plants that I have killed or I'm currently killing. So yeah. This time I'm just going to do an overview of all the plants that I've killed, or I say all the plants, it's probably a portion of the plants that I've killed, which you might be thinking, okay, this girl sounds crazy. However, I think it's really important to acknowledge that in order to be a plant person or someone who's really into plants, a lot of the process of looking after plants includes a lot of trial and error, and truthfully speaking, a lot of that includes killing plants because that is the only way that you end up learning what your plant needs, which sounds a bit brutal and also doesn't sound great from a money saving / spending point of view. However, I think it's just part and parcel of having an enthusiasm for living things. And don't get me wrong, I'm not talking about animals here, because if you're killing your animals, that's not good. But when you're killing plants, you know, it's sad, but it's not the end of the world. It is part of learning. So I think I've got a long list. Yep, and this is only the ones I can remember off the top of my head, so there's plenty more, I'm certain of it. But you know, this is over several years of plant keeping and you know, learning about their conditions and, you know, perhaps getting plants that weren't quite appropriate for the conditions I had them living in. So I'll just jump right in and I'll try and insert pictures of these. Maybe I should shimmy to the, yeah, I'll shimmy to the left. Okay, so I'm going to put pictures of these plants over here so that you can see the ones that I've had my disasters with. Oh, also don't mind my hair, I'm just, it's lockdown and I don't feel the impetus to do anything with my hair, so I'm just kind of letting it dry as it is. Anyway, irrelevant. So the first on the list is Dischidia numeralifolia. I can never say this. Numeralifolia, I think. Yeah, Dischidia numeralifolia. This is also known as pangolin kisses. I have killed this twice. So the first time I put it down to having been shipped from the Netherlands and it being quite cold when that happened. The second time, not so much. The second time, I think it was all on me. I think I didn't give it enough sunlight and I think I let it dry out a bit too much, which is really irritating because they are quite expensive. The first plant that I got, I think it was like £30. I can't remember. I did put it in a haul actually, so I'll have to look back and I'll double check. It wasn't £30, it was like £15 or something like that. But it was quite a full plant, whereas the second one that I got was kind of the more UK prices, which is a really tiny little kind of 2-inch pot with 2 stems, and that cost £9. And I kind of got it on a whim and I really shouldn't have, because clearly I can't look after it. So I might try it again in the future, who knows. The next one was Peperomia Napoli Nights. I have a bit of a kind of an on-off relationship with Peperomia. When I give them the care and attention that they deserve, they do well. When I forget about them and neglect them, they don't do so well. I was actually quite sad about this one because I brought it back to the UK with me after my first ever solo trip across Europe. So it had a bit of a travel in my in my hand luggage, and yeah, I was a bit gutted to lose that one. But it was a tiny plant, and it just didn't make it. And that was actually after a couple of months of keeping it well. So like I said, sometimes I do well with them and then they'll just tank on me. I've got some other peperomias in this list as well, but we'll just carry on. Many begonias, okay? And when I say many, I mean probably more than 20, possibly more than 30. Begonias particularly are very much a type of plant where you have a lot of trial and error, and quite often you just won't get it right for your first 20 begonias. And I know this to be true because I know I've spoken to many other people who've had the same experience. Because they have quite a unique set of requirements, they are very fussy. They need to be watered in a certain way, they need a certain humidity, but it depends on what type of begonia you have as to what humidity you need. They are prone to bacterial leaf spot and all sorts of different things. It's just a minefield, and even now there are still begonias that I end up killing. Begonias I would call a high maintenance plant. So yeah, there's been plenty that I've killed. Also, sadly, most of the plants, the begonias that I got from Dibley's in my Dibley's haul, I will link it above, they sadly didn't make it because I think because they send them to you in a kind of mesh plug, and the roots don't really seem to do well with that because it seems to retain a lot of moisture. So whenever you water it, all that moisture is kind of stuck in that plug. And I found that since I took the ones that Jerry sent me in our little plant swap from Planting Memories here on YouTube, I took them out of the plug and they have done perfectly. Like, they've done really, really well. So I think that plug was a lot to do with why those begonias had issues. I eventually did take the plugs out and killed a few in the process just from shock, I think, from doing that. But, you know, it was worth the risk because a few of them survived, so. And it seemed like they were gonna die anyway. Anyway, yeah, loads of begonias, like too many to list on here because you just get bored. Next is Alocasia Poly X Amazonica, or whatever you want to call it. The Amazonica X something else. I can never remember the proper name of it because there's so many floating around. I killed my first one within a very short space of time of owning it, mainly because I just was living in a north-facing flat. It was very cold. My Alocasia went dormant. I wasn't kind of au fait with Alocasias at the time, and I didn't really realise that how much I was watering it was far too much, and it ended up with complete root rot. Everything died. It just was a disaster. And this was quite early on in my plant journey as well, so I was pretty gutted about that one. And I did eventually buy a second one, and that one tanked like heavily. It was on the brink of death, and I've managed to bring it back by sticking it under a grow light and just letting it dry out. I know that sounds bad for an Alocasia, but I let it dry out and it seems to do well, and then when I water it, it perks back up again. It just, for some reason, the Poly / Amazonica / whatever you want to call it, seems to do better that way. And he's actually growing a baby, so it must be doing okay. Next is Hypoestes, which some of you may know as the polka dot plant. Not too sad about this. I think this is a very bad habit of mine, that when I have a plant that I'm not super into, like, I suppose you would call a Hypoestes kind of a filler plant. It's kind of something you put in to fluff up your terrariums. I actually find it surprising when people have Hypoestes as like a statement plant, because it just, I don't know, it suits being like small, bushy, and like as a supporting act sort of thing. And I think because of how I feel about that is probably why mine have declined. I've had quite a few Hypoestes over the years, and in fairness, a lot of them bounce back. There's just a couple that just haven't. They've just died. Because usually what you can do is, if the end kind of leaves and stuff die, then you can chop it back right to the soil, and as long as you don't have root rot, then it will kind of regenerate itself. But if you've got root rot, say you've overwatered it or you've underwatered it chronically and then you soak it, that's going to kill your roots too. Same with Fittonia. I've killed a few Fittonia in the same way, just because I think I see them as like the fluffers. Although I've got a gorgeous Fittonia now, which you'll see on my Instagram if you follow me. And that particular one is like, that's my statement plant. So I'm starting to get it, guys, okay? I'm starting to get it. That one, if that one dies, I'll be like bummed, seriously bummed. Next is Alocasia lauterbachyiana. This was a tiny little plant that I bought off eBay. I think it was genuinely just too small to survive. It really struggled on. It clung on to life for a good, maybe a year. And it just, every time it grew a leaf, it dropped one, and it had a total of 1.5 leaves. So as it was growing a new leaf, that one big leaf would die, and the other half of one was like clinging on for dear life, and it would get a new leaf, and then it would flop, and then it was not worth the hassle, to be honest. I think with Alocasias, if you're a beginner with Alocasias, you don't really want to get a plug plant. You want to get a well-established plant that can kind of handle a bit of trial and error with watering and with light and that kind of thing. Something that's well-established and not super delicate. So yeah, and to be honest, I got so sick of that plant that when it finally died, I was just like, relief. Next, I think everyone's killed this, the Lithops or Lithops, the little plant that looks like a baby's bum or like an alien bum or something like that. It's weird little, they look like stones, and they're scientifically speaking an incredible plant. Like, they're super cool, really awesome. But because they hold so much moisture in those two leaves, it's really hard to get the watering right. It's really hard to get the light right. They're just fussy as hell, okay? So if you're not really into succulents and you don't know how to look after succulents, stay away. I really would say stay away. It's just going to be a waste of money. Aloe vera, I've killed a good few aloe vera over the years, and I think that's just because, this is hard to admit, but I just didn't care enough. That's bad, isn't it? But I think because they're so available, they propagate so easily, they do so well, like, I just end up leaving them and then they die. So yeah, aloe vera. Cacti, many cacti. Again, this is due to either buying them in the wrong state, like, you know, when you get them where they've got like some kind of cactus grit glued on top. That's a complete recipe for root rot. You're gonna get a dead cactus. Don't even bother buying them. Or it's been because I lived in a flat that was north facing. They didn't get any sunlight, and the flat itself had a lot of damp issues. It was very humid, so those cacti just didn't make it. Particularly the very small ones, they are very susceptible to root and stem rot, particularly if they're not getting what they need in terms of sunlight. Really essential, to be honest with you. And I say that I have managed to keep a lot of cacti alive, considering that they lived so long with no sunlight. But I wouldn't say it's advisable, to be honest. You can do it, but I'd say keep your collection small so that you can really keep an eye on what's going on with them. Philodendron Brazil. I don't know what it is about this plant, but I've killed it several times. And every time I own it, it just seems to struggle. And I'm not sure what that's about. I'm not sure. I think possibly because I treat it a bit too much like a pothos, like I let it dry out too much. And then it just can't seem to bounce back. I don't really know, I'm not sure. If anyone has any tips on the Brazil, please let me know. Tradescantia zebrina. This is a lot like the aloe vera for me. I think because it takes care of itself quite well. It's very easily propagatable, it's available everywhere, it's cheap. I just kind of lose interest, which is really sad because it's actually a beautiful plant. I'm actually on quite a heavy Tradescantia kick at the moment, so I'm hoping that I will actually keep these ones alive. But yeah, I don't know, there's something about them, they just end up dying in my care from neglect, I think. I've passed off a few in the past to Craig because he's a bit more careful with plants, like regardless of their expense or their desirability or rarity or whatever, and they seem to do a lot better with him. Anthurium and Andrianum, I can never say this, but this is like the flamingo flower, the one that you normally see in supermarkets, etc. Very easy to kill, surprisingly. I've killed a black Anthurium that I bought for my mum. I think just I didn't have enough light for it. And I'm certain that I've killed another one at some point in time. But I do have one remaining and he's doing well. He's not flowering, but we'll get there. We'll get there. He's under a grow light now, so we'll see what happens. Another Peperomia. This is the Peperomia Shumi Red, which is the gorgeous, like, crinkly red one, crinkly dark red. It just, I think I overwatered it or underwatered it. I'm not really sure what happened to it. I think I just didn't give it the care and attention it needs, like I said before. Either if I'm really looking after my Peperomia, they absolutely flourish, like they love life. But if I forget about them for a while, they just kind of croak. Gynura, which is the lovely fluffy purple plant, and I bought that one from eBay. It was a cutting and it just didn't survive, I think because they're just a bit too delicate to be kind of shipped around, particularly as a cutting. I think they need a bit more care than that. So I've got a much bigger one now and it's surviving well. So fingers crossed that stays the same way. Ceropegia woodii, also known as string of hearts. That I have killed just out of sheer neglect. I think I just got fed up with it, to be honest with you. Because it just kept getting bald at the top and I kept snipping it back and propagating it, and then it would get bald at the top again, and this was all my fault because I didn't have it in the appropriate place, but I was just like, oh, I don't want to anymore, so I just kind of left it. Amazingly, even though I did just leave it to die, it actually pulled its way back. I tried to propagate some of the ends and make them survive. They died, because I forgot about them. But I chopped everything back to the soil. It didn't look too healthy, so I didn't think it was going to survive. I kind of left it because I forgot to throw it away, basically. And then about 3 months later, I was like, I didn't realize I had a Ceropegia woodii. I thought that died, and turns out it made its way back. So yes. So now I have 2 and they're doing very well. Gerbera, I think I just fell out of love with the Gerbera because I was going through very much a foliage phase, and this particular Gerbera kept getting powdery mildew or some kind of leaf mold anyway. And I was just like, I'm over it. You don't have beautiful leaves. You've stopped flowering for me, mainly because I was living in a north-facing flat. But ignore that part. It was all its fault. So I kind of left that one to die in a corner. Croton. I've also killed a Croton. No, I've killed 3 Crotons. I think everyone's killed a Croton. Anyone who's had a Croton has probably killed a Croton. So yeah, I don't feel too bad about that one. They're fussy as hell. I've got one clinging on to life at the moment, and I can't bring myself to chuck it, but I'm also like, can you just die, please? Like, so I can let go. I've also killed a Dionea, which is a Venus flytrap. I think mine just died because I let it flower and it was a bit too small to support flowering, and it just died. So if you have a Venus flytrap that's very small and you see a flower spike coming up, chop it off, because it takes up all of the energy from the plant and it can't always sustain itself when it's really small. From all these things, I learn a lot. I know not to do that now. Cephalotus follicularis, I was really upset about this one because I haven't managed to find one since. And I friggin' love that carnivorous plant. And I think all that happened was it got to winter, it kind of went dormant, and I think I might have let it dry out a little bit too much. And it didn't survive, and I am still gutted about that. That was about a year ago, and I am friggin' gutted, like really sad. So if anyone's got a Cephalotus follicularis going, please let me know. Dieffenbachia, I've killed a few. I had 4 really beautiful big Dieffenbachias recently, and one of them had stem rot, and I don't know what this was. I think it was either a virus or some kind of bacteria that every time I tried to get rid of it, it just kind of started eating the stem away again in a different place, and it seemed to spread onto the other Dieffenbachias in its proximity. And yeah, just didn't make it. I've got one tiny little pup that's surviving. Oh, I can show you here. One that is not surviving. This was one of the other pups, and there is a little bit of green down there, so I'm probably going to just try and chop the top off and see what happens. But yeah, it's looking pretty sad. Sad times. Thankfully, that stem rot bacteria, whatever it was, doesn't seem to have affected any other plants, so I'm not too worried about having it there. So yes. When I mentioned the cacti, I didn't mention succulents, but I've killed a shit load of succulents. Let me tell you. All right, coffee time. So yeah, among the ones that make me the saddest is the Crassula Buddha's Temple. Yeah. That one made me sad because I found that at the British Cactus and Succulent Society show. Was it last year? It must have been last year. And I was like over the moon to find this. Like, I was so excited. It was a time where it was impossible to find them in the UK. And I bought it for something like £6 or something like that, or it might have been £4. I can't remember. But I was just like, yes, like, the best thing ever has happened to me. And I think, again, because I was living in a north-facing flat, it just wasn't the right environment for it. I've got a new one now to replace it, as I have a lovely south-facing window now, or 2. So fingers crossed that one will remain alive. A fairly recent one, although I have killed more than one of these, well, more than one bromeliad, but this particular one I was a bit sad about, my Vriesa hieroglyphica. It was in a recent video about my favourite underrated plants. Yeah, I'm sad about that one. I got that one from Kew Gardens, and you don't see the hieroglyphica around very often. To be honest, you don't really see any kind of interesting bromeliad cultivars around in shops anyway. You see some Neoregalia occasionally, but not too many of the non-flowering bromeliads, which is kind of sad because I think they're among my favourite, really. And finally, this is just of the ones that I can remember, so this isn't the final one that I've killed. Chlorophytum comosum, aka the spider plant. I used to friggin' nail the spider plants. My spider plant was huge. It was like the best I'd ever seen. I was spider plant mother of the year. And this was before I got into plants properly. And I don't know what's happened, but now I can't seem to keep a spider plant alive, and I don't know why. I wonder if it's that I'm more used to looking after plants that need more care, and maybe I'm giving them a bit too much care, a bit too much love, or maybe I'm just giving them so little love, like the Ceropegia woodii and the Gerbera, that they're just croaking. But they don't do well with me anymore, and that's a real shame because I don't really know what's changed. I was mega gutted when my big one died. I made a horrible mistake of trying to convert it to leca, aka semi-hydroponics, and I think that was after it had begun to get a bit of root rot, and the root rot just kind of spread through the whole root system, and it was just beyond salvageable once I kind of realised what was happening. So yeah, that one I was gutted about, because I was like, I would have won Mother of the Year with you. So, yep, sad times. So yeah, that's it for now, guys. All the ones that I can remember anyway. I am 100% certain that there are others on this list that I've forgotten about. Off the top of my head, there's ferns, there's all sorts of things that I've killed. Surprisingly, the rare plants that I own seem to do really well with me, and I think that's because I'm so afraid of them dying on me that I give them like optimum care. And I think sadly it's the ones that are more available and more common that kind of seem to struggle with me. But that's now, whereas before, when I was really getting into plants and stuff like that, there was a lot of casualties. Like, let's be honest, there was so many, because that's all part of the learning process. And I think the reason I wanted to make this video is because I think it's very easy to look online and see YouTubers or see Instagrammers and all sorts of people who've got the perfect plants. I think that you can end up feeling, you know, I think it plays on inadequacy feelings when you feel like everyone else has got only successful looking plants and, you know, their plants are doing well while yours are dying. And I just want to say it's normal. And I think, to be honest, if you've got a lot of plants that have died in your care, if anything, it makes you a more well-rounded plant person, because you have been through that experience of plants dying on you, you learn your lessons, you understand your mistakes, and you try again, or you don't, but you as a plant person, you try to understand what it is that's caused the issue with that plant. So all I'm saying basically is don't worry. Even the so-called plant experts, which I am not, by the way, but I think a lot of people that I know, because I'm more into plants than other people that they know, they think that I'm like the plant guru. And I'm more kind of like, well, I can tell you what I think might help, but that's based on my conditions. So just try and see. So yeah, I'm not a plant guru by any stretch. But yeah, it's all a work in progress. You will kill plants. It's part of plant parenthood. Don't worry about it, and just get on with it. You know, I think if you see someone claiming that they've never killed a plant, you've got to question why that is. And I think either they don't have that many plants, or they just don't have that experience. That I think is what actually makes you a plant person. Contentious point. Let me know what you think in the comments, and please let me know if you have a kill list, anything like mine does, because if plants were people, I'd be in prison for life. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you've killed, and if there's anything on this list that surprises you as well, or maybe the size of the list surprises you. I hope you found it helpful anyway, or at least reassuring. Thank you so much for watching, as always, and if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this type of content, and I will hope to see you next time.